Hello friends, welcome to the lecture series on human resource management. We had started learning about some emerging trends in the previous lectures. So as you all know by now that human resource management is a transforming and an evolving domain, and with every passing single day it witnesses some new trends. This is primarily because at the core of human resource management lies the humans who themselves are evolving and their needs and desires are changing. You can take your own example or examples from your family that their needs, the needs and desires of your grandparents would be different from the needs and desires of your parents, and moving forward the needs and desires of you per se. So thus we see that there is a surge of novel trends that are talked about both in the organizations and also in the academic areas, and there is a lot of research that is going both in organizations and in academic areas about what are these trends and how organizations can improve, how organizations can face these challenges of human resource management and achieve organizational success. So in the previous discussion, I talked about certain trends like employee engagement, which is the passionate involvement of an individual with his work, with his organization, where he puts in certain discretionary efforts. He does certain activities that are not there in his job role or job duties, and how certain engaged employees can help the organization achieve their goals and achieve effectiveness. Then we talked about employee empowerment, that today organizations are trying to empower their employees with resources. Resources can be financial resources, the tools, the softwares, and the information to do their jobs. They are empowering their employees with decision making. So there is more emphasis on employees in the decision making process. Then there is reskilling and upskilling, whereby the organizations are trying to train their workforce so that they can perform in a better way. Then there is cloud computing, another challenge, another trend in the human resource management areas. Then we also discussed about gig workers, like the drivers of Uber. They are not permanent employees of Uber. Instead, they are gig workers who are independent workers who work for a particular period of time, and as their job is over or the project is over, they leave their organization and go out for some other projects. So these, and then there is knowledge management, that is achieving organizational objectives by using knowledge. So we had discussed all these trends in the previous discussions. So in the forthcoming series of this lecture, I will be discussing upon certain more emerging trends like outsourcing, the green human resource management. We will talk of high performance work systems. We will talk of employee experience, design thinking, psychological contract, then women at workplace and women in leadership roles, and lastly we will talk of the psychological safety. So most of these emerging trends you will not find in your traditional HRM books. So these are the recent trends that are gathered from the internet and with the help of experiences of employees in the organizations. So let's start with our first emerging trend, that is outsourcing. You must have heard, I'm sure you must have heard of this term, that one organization has outsourced this function or the other function has been outsourced to some other organization. So what is actually outsourcing? Well, outsourcing is an agreement in which one company hires another company to be responsible for a planned or existing activity that is or could be done internally. So it can be an existing activity that you want to outsource, or it can be a future activity. For example, you plan to come up with a new project, a new product maybe, but you are still planning it, but you do it, you could have done it internally, but you want to outsource it. So sometimes it involves transferring employees and assets from one firm to the other. So let's first understand what are the various types of outsourcing. So there are several ways to outsource a business process. So primarily based on the distance between the two companies, that is the parent company and the company to which you are outsourcing your functions. So the distance between the two companies can be classified as, so the first type of outsourcing is onshoring, second is offshoring, and the third one is nearshoring. So let's understand the difference between these three. So if I say onshoring, onshoring means that I am relocating my work or services to a lower cost location in the company's own country. See, if I am operating in India, but I want to outsource a particular function to another company within India, it will be known as onshoring. Second is offshoring. It means relocating work or services to a third party provider overseas. So now I am based in India, but I find a particular skill set or maybe a cheap labor or maybe better expertise in some other country. So I outsource that particular task or that particular activity to the other country. Say it might be a European country. So when I am relocating work or services to another country in Europe, that is offshoring. Then third is nearshoring. Nearshoring, as the name suggests, it means relocating your work or services to people in nearby or often bordering regions and countries. So if I am in India, I might be relocating my work to Nepal, to Bhutan. So these are all bordering regions. So that in that case, it will be known as nearshoring. But the primary question that might come to your mind is that if you have the ability to do that particular job, that particular task or function, then why do organizations outsource? So the primary function that arises in outsourcing is, why do organizations outsource? So the primary reason behind outsourcing is that it reduces the operating labor and overhead costs. See, if you have to start something new, a new project, so it might be possible that you don't have the that particular skill set or that particular kind of workforce who are able to perform that particular job. So in that case, you will tend to outsource your activities. The second reason why organizations outsource is that by focusing more on the company's core competencies, thus improving its competitive advantage. So outsourcing time-consuming processes to a third party is the main, we can say, the reason, because there are certain activities that are more time-consuming and less rewarding. So organizations try to outsource such time-consuming processes or activities to a third party so that they can focus more on the company's core competencies. Then another reason for outsourcing is that organizations, by outsourcing, they are freeing up their internal resources and using these resources for other more important purposes. So there can be a case where the new process or any particular activity is not very important or not very value adding to the organizational success. So in that case, the organization, the parent organization, outsources those particular activities to a third party so that their internal staff is freed up to perform other important tasks of the organization. Then there can be mitigation of risk when you are outsourcing your jobs, you're outsourcing your activities to the third party, obviously the risk will be shared. So the entire risk of losses is not on you, right? So it is risk sharing with external parties and building a meaningful partnership. So it also improves flexibility and efficiency by delegating responsibilities that are difficult to manage and control to external companies. So there are certain operations that are difficult to manage and difficult to control at times. So what the organizations do, they outsource those particular responsibilities to a third party. Then it also helps in developing the internal staff. How? See, sometimes what happens is, for example, if I have an organization, I have outsourced a particular activity to another company. So they will send their people to my organization to do that particular job, right? So my employees and people of my organization will learn from them. So that is why we say it helps in developing the internal staff of the organization. So what is the concept of outsourcing in human resource management? Let's understand this. So we all know that people are the most important asset of any organization. It is on the shoulder of the people that organizations, achieve success or fail. So people are very important aspect of an organization, and organizations are today recognizing this aspect that indeed people are the important assets of their organization. So prominent companies around the world are taking more strategic approach to managing their human resources. See, now we are saying that people are important asset, then we have to manage this asset in a strategic manner. So they are managing their human resources by outsourcing their routine and mundane day-to-day human resource functions, so that there is a focus on strategic HR issues that impact the corporate performance and the shareholder value. See, this is very important. So instead of involving the people of your organization doing routine mundane jobs, it is better to outsource those mundane jobs, those routine jobs to a third company, a third organization, so that your people, your human resources can work upon, can focus upon more strategic issues of the organization, so that you can achieve a competitive advantage and your performance can enhance. So in the context of human resource management, outsourcing refers to the process in which a company utilizes the services of the third party to take care of its HR functions. So it may be done entirely, the entire human resource function may be outsourced, or some activities may be outsourced and some may be kept by the parent organization. For example, I am the parent organization, I might, outsource the entire human resource functions to a third party. Entire means it can be from your recruitment to the exit of an employee. So entire employee journey, we can say, is outsourced to a third party. Or what I can do is, I see that recruitment is very important for my organization, so I'll keep recruitment with myself. I feel that I am not very convenient, very comfortable with the management of their appraisal systems or their rewards and recognitions. So I might outsource that particular function to a third party, retaining some important like recruitment, like training, I retain with my company. So in that way, partly it can be outsourced. So the company may outsource a few or all of its HR related activities to a single or combination of service providers. So here also there are another option with the organizations. So what we can do is that and I outsource one particular activity to organization A, then I might outsource another activity to organization B. So there can be a single service provider or a combination of service providers. So the recent competitive challenges of the global marketplace are creating demand for expert human resource outsourcing, and outsourcing providers manage the non-value adding administrative business functions of organizations to facilitate them to concentrate on their cost competencies, or their core competencies of the organization are managed by the parent organization, and the non-value adding administrative business functions are done by the outsourcing providers. So let's take a quick examples of outsourcing. You must have heard of P&G. Procter & Gamble had signed a 10-year $400 million deal with IBM to handle their employee services. So IBM supports almost 98,000 of Procter & Gamble employees in nearly 80 countries with services such as payroll processing, benefits administration, compensation, planning, relocation services, travel and expense management. Also, Unilever in 2006, it outsourced its HR activities, mostly transaction oriented, such as payroll administration, applicant tracking, training and development, record keeping, performance appraisal, follow-ups, etc. to Accenture, and that appeared to be in the right direction. So outsourcing types in human resource management. According to the Society of Human Resource Management, let's understand what are the various types of outsourcing in human resource management. The first one is the software as a service. You must have heard about it. It is also known as SaaS. So it is a software licensing and delivery model where software applications are hosted remotely by a vendor or a service provider and made available to customers via a web browser. So web browser is being used here. But in the HR realm, the employers most commonly pay for access to talent management, for example, applicant tracking, training and performance, and payroll applications. So the second type of outsourcing in HRM is the business process outsourcing, or the BPO, commonly known as BPO. So it is a arrangement in which an employer contracts a single business task such as payroll to a third party service provider, and the client is in direct contact with the employees through call centers or support centers. So here there is a single business task which is outsourced to a third party, and the clients are contacted through the customer care or the call centers of the support centers. Now this type of an outsourcing is very useful when employees are in diverse locations and are very large in number, right? So due to the multinational corporations that are coming up in the entire globe, we can say, so employees are at diverse locations. So to manage all these their needs, we can use business process outsourcing. The next is single source outsourcing. Single source, as the name suggests, it means the HR professionals access one solution to meet their needs. From welcoming new hires to managing turnover, a single supplier covers the full employee life cycle. So as I already stated, that a single source or a single organization looks after the entire life cycle of the employee from his or her employment to his exit. So that is called a single source outsourcing type. The next one is the professional employer organization, or the PEO. It assumes full legal responsibility of a company's human resources, and the PEO and the parent company, they work as associates, and the PEO handles the human resource aspects, whereas the parent company or the owner handles the core businesses. So these were some types of outsourcing in human resource management, and we also learned some benefits that we get, but it is not devoid of any disadvantages also. So when we say outsourcing, you have to depend on a third party. So here comes the disadvantages of having outsourced certain functions of your organization. The first disadvantage of outsourcing is that there is a risk of losing your sensitive employee data and the loss of confidentiality by outsourcing to external parties. And sometimes what happens is that the employees are not happy with their data being shared with some third party. Then there can be loss of management control and the inability to control operations or processes that are outsourced. So if I am outsourcing a certain process, I might be losing control over these operations, and they might not end up the way I wanted. So this is a major, we can say, drawback or a disadvantage of outsourcing. Then outsourcing companies may certain times impose some hidden or unexpected costs by creating some lengthy agreements with lots of fine prints, which the parent organization might not be able to understand, and they may be paying up more at the end of the contract. Then when you are outsourcing, there can be lack of quality control, as outsourcing companies are often profit driven rather than focusing on doing a good job. See, if it is my organization, I have certain quality standards that are set. So the outsourced company or the third party, it might not be providing that quality that I expect them to. They are basically driving profit from whatever services they are providing. So that lack of quality control is a drawback of outsourcing. Then there can be ethical issues between the organization and the third party, as employees frequently see the decision to outsource as a threat to their job security. So they might lose their motivation, their morale when those functions are being outsourced. Then there can be delay in decision making, as the entire process becomes lengthy because a third party is being involved in the entire decision making process. So that becomes the delay in the decision making processes. So it is not the case that since outsourcing is an emerging trend, it is not necessary that every company, every organization has to outsource. So before you plan of outsourcing or before you opt for outsourcing, an organization must be prepared with some basic knowledge. So they must have, first of all, they must have an idea that which functions can be outsourced and which are the core or strategic functions that need to stay in-house. So that is very important, that every organization must not just outsource for the fashion. It's a fashion, so let's outsource. No. You have to have this idea that what functions have to be outsourced and what you need to keep in-house. Then the organization must thoroughly investigate the numerous outsource vendors that are available in the market, and out of those vendors they must try to find the right match which is suitable to you or suitable for the functions that you want to outsource. Then you must also have a clear and realistic expectations about why they are outsourcing and what are the cost savings. So that a return on investment must be calculated, that what will be the cost if we do that particular activity ourselves and what will be the cost if we are outsourcing that particular activity. So there must be a clear picture in the mind and realistic expectations about why we are outsourcing these particular activities and what is the need for outsourcing. It need not be in a haphazard manner. It has to be done very meticulously, I must say, because it is a very important decision for the organization. So, we will continue with some more emerging trends in the next section of the lecture.